Are you ready to take your next furniture painting project from a Pinterest fail to proud? Well, I'm here to help with my 8 easy tips to help you paint furniture like a pro. Well, who the heck am I? Hi, I'm Tracy, also known as Porch Daydreamer, and I'm the queen of painting everything. Millions of people come to my website each year for my in-depth paint tutorials or to find that perfect paint color. So yes, I'm the perfect person to help you figure it all out. Tip number 1, and please don't skip this step, is to always remove the hardware, whether they're knobs or pulls or hinges, from any pieces of furniture that you are painting. If you don't, you're gonna have to keep using your brush to go around all of that different hardware. Number 1, that's really time consuming. Number 2, you're not gonna get the smooth results you hope for because you're gonna add so many brush marks when you actually could roll over those areas instead. Tip number 2, please inspect the furniture that you are painting, rub your hand across it, and check for any peeling, flaking, weak, or chipped areas that are on the surface before you ever get started. It's really important that you never apply primer or paint over those failing surfaces, because a failing surface equals a failing paint job. So make sure you sand those areas smooth before you ever get started. Tip number 3, you must, and I mean must, always clean before you ever apply primer or paint to your furniture. You've got to remove all the grime, all the grease, all the dust, all the dirt. Because again, if you don't and you apply over the top of that, it's going to create a little weak spot and you're not going to get the results that you want and may create an area that will peel, chip, or flake later. Tip number 4, if you are painting over anything that is stained, please, 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 and this is a pro step that a lot of the chalk manufacturers and paint manufacturers don't want to talk about. Always prime with a stain blocking primer when you're painting over stain. Why is that, Tracy? Well, guess what? There's this nasty little thing called tan and bleed, and it's when those brown little streaks start coming up through your paint job and they magically will never disappear. So head that off at the chase and make sure you always apply a stain blocking primer first. Tip number 5, and this is a big one, folks, and it drives me crazy because I see tutorials out there that don't talk about it. They just like to show those quick little videos and the after, but not the in-between, and this is the most important part. Please pay attention on the back of the can of the paint or primer that you buy and watch for the recoat time. Recoat time is the time in between coats of paint, not the dry time. Why is this important? If you apply another coat of paint on the last coat of paint too soon, it's going to stick to itself and never fully dry and be tacky and sticky. That technically is called blocking. So pay attention to those recoat times. Dry times are something we're going to talk about later. Tip number 6, and this one should be pretty intuitive because you removed your hardware, right? Your knobs, your pulls, and your hinges. Please make sure you leave your drawers or cabinet doors open. The reason you want to do this is because, first of all, you're not going to have an easy way to open up a drawer or a cabinet and may have to pry it open later, and you may end up damaging your beautiful painted finish. But the other thing is that you may not even be thinking of is the fact that there is so much water in paint that the paint actually swells the surface just a little bit. So that's why drawers sometimes will become super sticky when you open and close them after they've been painted. So make sure you leave them open while your paint is drying. We're almost to the end, folks. Tip number 7. Tip number 7 is something that may have happened to you when you paint around the feet of chairs or some kind of a cabinet on legs, and that is it sticks to the cardboard or the plastic underneath. So before you let everything dry, if you can, use your hip, use whatever you got, and shift your furniture slightly so it never dries, adhering to where any of that paint may have pooled or puddled while you were applying it. And last but not least, back to that hardware that you removed, make sure you let your paint dry overnight so it's as dry as possible before you ever reattach any hardware. You don't want to put hardware on before your paint is fully dry because literally the hardware may adhere to the paint. And guess what? If you ever want to take it off, change the hardware, or change the paint color, it may stick and actually pull that paint off, creating a disaster. So make sure you don't get too over enthusiastic and apply that hardware too soon. So I hope these 8 tips are a great beginner starting ground for you so you can go from Pinterest fail to absolutely proud the next time you decide to paint some furniture.